Hello, BookTube. I thought I'd give you a morning after account of my last night's reading, just as a way to talk to you about books and about reading a little. I'm only going to make a few videos today because I am incredibly pressed with work. Who knew? I'm incredibly pressed with work. And that has a double reaction on my part. The negative part of that reaction is, of course, it limits my ability to talk to my imaginary BookTube friends, to all the bots out there who faithfully watch and crawl over every video. But on the other hand, it feels good because I'm a lifelong freelance writer. And any freelance writer is going to feel very good. They're going to have an extra pep in their step if people are offering them checks that don't bounce. That's going to feel wonderful. It does feel wonderful. Even at 175, it still feels wonderful. So I did a huge amount of work yesterday. Just pretty much every minute, including some minutes that I usually don't devote to work, where I try to train myself not to work in those minutes by using the iPad, just having the iPad with me, which I've mentally decided is not a work device. And even in those times, yesterday and going into last night, I just found myself turning the iPad horizontal and working on it. Because without any attachable keyboard, without anything like that, without a stand or anything of that kind, you can do a lot of work on an iPad. I am not one who is bothered by the on-screen keyboard. I'm not bothered by it at all. If you're generating prose, if that's what you're doing, just writing prose, you can do a lot of work on an iPad. Right there in your lap, right there on the pillow on the couch, without ever needing to go to another device. So I did a lot of that yesterday, and then I took the bean out, and I was getting ready for the night, and I was thinking, okay, well, what have you got lined up for tonight? What kind of new releases have you got lined up for tonight? What kind of forthcoming books are on the docket? And all the list of them sprang to mind, and I ignored it. I was terribly, terribly truant. All evening and all night long, I was terribly truant. I read things that were not on the docket, and that is terrible. I should not do that. I don't want to fall behind on new releases. On the Kindle, the little blue Kindle that all of you were talking about, all of you have been emailing me about it, on the little blue Kindle, which really is just the size of a hand, really is kind of amazing. Just a little device. It wasn't my choice. I was driven to it by my Kindle Oases, both of which froze up on me at one time. I've had a number of you who are more technically savvy than I am say that was certainly the file. I was trying to read the same file on both devices. They both froze up when I tried. Don't quite know how that works. I haven't pressed either one of you for details about that. But I find that a little hard to believe, that the file would seize up the device. I find that I don't see how, my Czech primitive brain doesn't see how that would work. But I was driven, since that happened, I thought, all right, well, give it a rest. You don't want to throw them out the window, so just put them somewhere and pull out a much newer Kindle that uses USB-C and will not seize up on you. And I did that. I chose this over the Paperwhite or anything like that because it's USB-C. And on it, I read The Chill by Ross Macdonald. A Lou Archer novel with this great, you can't really make it out, but this great old period cover there. It was terrific, absolutely terrific. I am loving Lou Archer, absolutely loving these Ross Macdonald books. One thing, naturally, I'm comparing them in my mind. At first, I was comparing them to Rex Stout, the Nero Wolfe novels, and Mickey Spillane, the Mike Hammer novels. But it's an insult to pretty much anything that I've read to compare it to Mike Hammer. I'm trying to get those books out of my mind. So I'm not comparing these to them, but comparing these to Nero Wolfe, I don't quite know how to put this. Because you all know I love the Nero Wolfe novels. I read them. I've read them all year. I lived with them and loved them. Went from one to the next. I almost never do that with a series. I loved them. Absolutely loved them. I'm sure I will go back to them. But Ross Macdonald is a hell of a better writer than Nero Wolfe. It's not fair to say, because they're not trying to do the same thing. Even though they're both writing murder mysteries, they're not trying to have the same effect. Even so. I mean, I guess you could get around that. You could fudge that because the Nero Wolfe stories are not really written by Rex Stout. They're written by Archie Goodwin. he narrates them. We get told all the details through his point of view. And Nero Wolfe comments many times in those adventures that he disapproves of the way Archie Goodwin expresses himself. So it could be that Rex Stout was just burying himself in the part. But Lou Archer narrates these books. And they're amazing. The Chill is just amazingly good. Starts out so simple, really with a coincidence, which I ordinarily don't like, and just moves on from there, and you are totally caught up in how it moves on. There's not, much like Rex Stout, there is not a single bit of fat, not a single bit of farting around the way you get in so many poorly constructed murder mysteries. And also some great one-liners, some great just tossed off literary eloquence, on Archer's part, but still it's on MacDonald's part, that I just love. Like at one point he says, some men spend their lives looking for ways to punish themselves for having been born. Oh. Or another one where he describes, Lou Archer describes a young character, he was at that age where everything hurts. Which is not only simple and eloquent, but entirely true. And then truest of all, oh my God, the favorite line here. Lou Archer says about one character, I couldn't tell if his self-pity was false. Self-pity always is, to some extent. Just amazing. Oh, just amazing. So incredibly entertaining. That was one thing that I read last night while I was being truant. And the other thing I read was this. Carlo D'Este's book, A Bitter Victory, about the U.S. Army and the battle for Sicily, which came to me as a filthy library edition with all sorts of crap all over it. I got rid of all of that, used alcohol wipes and light scraping to clean it all up, put a covering on it so it's as good as new. And boy, oh boy, was this terrific. Oh boy. If I ever read this, I should check my reading journal. If I ever read this, I don't think I ever did. Because this is just so good. It's just so good. I mentioned when I hauled this yesterday that it was the same subject as the first volume in Rick Atkinson's Liberation trilogy. And several of you emailed me and pointed out that it's actually the second volume in that trilogy. And that put a big smile on my face. Not because of the hidden truth of BookTube that, hey kid, no matter how much you know about a subject, somebody out there always knows more. That's a rotten business. It stinks. It's the worst thing you can do to yourself, making BookTube videos. Not for that reason, but because A, it's not the end of the world to be told that you made a mistake, and B, the way that you all did it was just, when I lose faith in humanity, when I think that we have entered into a post-courtesy era, I make a flub like that. I mean, I've read and reviewed the Liberation trilogy, so in my mind I knew what volume it was, and you all knew that. When I lose faith like that, I get emails like the ones I got. Kidding, friendly, joking, saying, hey, you misspoke, it's not the first volume in that trilogy, maybe you should learn about your reading, maybe you should get more familiar with books, etc., etc. Oh, the friendly kidding is just fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh. Anyway, the Rick Atkinson trilogy was on my mind when I was just about finishing this. Oh my God, the feast of footnotes in this thing. Carlo D'Este does footnotes instead of endnotes, and he does them just right. They are essentially a running conversation on the book, a running dialogue with the book. Amazingly done. Amazingly. When you get a historian who does that kind of thing and does footnotes that way, if you're anything like me, you start looking for the footnotes because they're going to be lots of fun. And when I was, 2/3 of the way through this thing, I was thinking about the Rick Atkinson trilogy because this book is better. It's so what is the I'm completely blanking. It's An Army at Dawn. That's number one. That's the US Army in Africa. Right? And then the middle volume is Sicily, and what is that? I don't remember what the title of that one is. And then there's the third one, The Guns at First Light, which is great. Just a great volume. I should get that whole trilogy and reread it. But I loved it, and I have praised Rick Atkinson many times for how vivid and great a writer he is. He's currently doing a trilogy about the American Revolution. I guess maybe I will wait until the Brattle provides that middle volume of his trilogy to read it again, but I thought this was so much better than my memory of that. So I loved it. What an invigorating experience. As World War II always is, I actually started, when I was done with Bitter Victory, I actually started Eagle Against the Sun and put it down. I mean, I read 100 pages of it or so, but I put it, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. But I put it down so that I could read comic books for the remainder of my evening. So I did that. I read Smash Comics from long before your grandparents were born, most of you. I read Smash Comics. One issue after another after another. It was sheer heaven. Sheer heaven. I read that until I faded off into very, very involuntary sleep. But that was a long time into the night. That was the wee small hours of the morning. That was almost dawn. So I didn't actually finish this thing. So now I am a true booktuber because I can honestly say that I am reading this book, Gerund. I am in the middle of reading this book. It's not really a full-blown booktuber because I'm going to finish it in an hour tonight and move on to 3 more books. But still, right at the moment, I have not finished this book. So there you go. And it felt good because I don't have e-copies of either of these. So I didn't feel like I was being unfaithful to my tiny little Kindle device, which really is a miracle. I mean, I shouldn't be short shrifting these things. I love the Kindle Oasis. I like it more. I wish that I could find a snap-on aluminum back case for a Kindle. Do any of you know if such a thing exists? I've looked everywhere on Amazon for it. An aluminum case that you can snap on so that this doesn't feel plastic anymore. And I simply cannot find such a thing. I wish that I had made that request to all of you in the first 60 seconds of the video. None of you was watching now. Oh well, it's just the way the game works, kid. Anyway, it was a very, aside from Ross McDonald, it was a very World War II heavy night. Very, very David Murphy style night. And, you know, for what it's worth. So I've talked about, I was talking when I was reading Nero Wolfe, and I was up to my eyeballs in Nero Wolfe, I was saying how much I love these things. And quite a few of you who were familiar with Nero Wolfe were saying, so your Wolfe and David is Archie Goodwin, because Archie Goodwin does all the practical stuff and does all the physical stuff. He does all the moving around stuff, and Wolfe does not. I didn't appreciate that at all, but I don't know that there's anyone. I think there's a disturbingly accurate correspondence there. I don't think there's any correspondence like that in the Lou Archer novels, but boy, oh boy, would David love these. Oh boy, he would. So that even counts as a full David Murphy evening, because I read a book that he would really like if he ever read the made-up stories, and then sank myself into World War II stuff. And actually, these made me want to read more. That's the thing about World War II. I mean, some of you, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this on David's channel or seen that great Instagram post that he did. But he's entirely right when he calls the Second World War the greatest story of them all. Not the greatest war story, not the greatest story in history, the greatest story of them all. A million stories. For me, anyway, it really is addictive. When I start to read one book, I want to go on to another one. Provided they're well done, I want to go on to another one. I have to resist that urge. I have to resist that urge tonight, because tonight I cannot be truant. No way. Tonight I have to do real reading. I have to do current releases or forthcoming books. That has to be the bulk of my reading. It can't be this stuff. As good as this was, it can't be this stuff. So anyway, that's a reading update for you. I will wrap this up and I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.